Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Cowboy here. It is 8:31 a.m. EST. I've got my eye on the USD JPY, the Japanese yen. And the reason I do is because the Japanese yen is the linchpin for a lot of finance, pretty much the finance around the world right now. And the reason that is the case is because of something called the Japanese yen carry trade. We're not going to talk about that too deeply today, but if I were to describe it in one sentence, it's that the Japanese yen has been used and abused as the world's liquidity source, the world's liquidity engine, going back for decades and decades. And when that whole thing changes, that can change the face of the market, including Bitcoin and just about anything else. And it can change the face of precious metals in a way that you might not expect, or if you know the game, then you might expect. But push metals up, most likely over time. However, what does that look like in the chart, right? Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how I might profit from that. And we're also going to talk about all these other things. But before we do, get a free algo right there. Links in the description. Also, I've changed some settings. Hopefully my voice is synced up to, like, the microphone is synced up to the video. Hopefully it looks like I'm actually talking properly. I figured out what the technical issue was. And so I think I fixed it. If in fact my audio is syncing with the video and it looks like I'm talking like a normal person or not, please let me know. It'd be nice to know whether or not I have fixed the issue. Of course, I can check it out later. Into the charts we go. So this is a 3-day chart going back to the beginning of the month. And we saw a massive move up right here in the USD JPY that affected, in a big way, the stock market. I'm sure they affected each other. I'm sure it's not as simple as hey, this happened because of that. But long story short, Japanese yen got really weak and pushed up really high. And now it's actually heading back down. Now, on the way up here, we saw the stock market actually go through some trouble, which may or may not have been because of this. But if the Japanese yen is allowed to get strong, then we might see some trouble in the stock market. So let me go ahead and add the NASDAQ here so we can see what happened. This blue line is the NASDAQ. And as the Japanese yen was getting weak and the USD JPY was going up, the NASDAQ fell. And as that reversed, the NASDAQ ran up. Now, this actually is a little atypical. These things tend to track and not move in opposite directions. So that's an interesting thing to kind of see. Usually they're kind of sort of synced up. Not exactly, but in a very trend way they are. And it seems that they are again right now. We can see how the awesome. Thank you, Miko. I appreciate that. Yeah, Lisa, it's something I got to fine tune. But it's better than it was before. And that's really what's important. A very slight delay is fine. I'll get it fine tuned after the fact. For the moment, though, back into the chart. So now that these have resynced, it appears that whatever trouble was happening in the last couple of weeks, going back to mid-November, may or may not be over. This might have, had to do with all kinds of things. Of course, this massive move down in the NASDAQ started back at the end of October. A lot of news came through, kind of just a lot of stuff. We're not going to get into all the news and headline risk, but it appears that these are syncing up, which means the world is sort of returning to a somewhat normal scenario. And you can see here that the Japanese yen is starting to normalize as well. Now, I did tell people I didn't think it would get past 160 with this big move up, and it ended up topping out at 157.95. And I do believe right now what we're going to see, and I'm not totally sure about this, but of course you're never sure about anything in trading, but my probabilities say the price is going to grab liquidity. And I said this last night, by the way. If you go look at the video that I put out yesterday, the weekly market update, my prediction was that price would come up. One of my predictions was that price would come up to here, grab liquidity, and head down. I had another prediction that it would head down sooner, and that prediction did not take place. And that actually was kind of a primary prediction. In fact, instead of drawing it for you, I'll go to that screen, not that screen, but this screen, and I'll show you what I predicted and what's actually happening. So this was the video. This was from the video that I put out every week, and I figured it would head down, but it actually climbed up a little, for a little bit longer than expected, and then headed down. Now, I do have this dotted line, which means it wasn't my primary thesis, but it seems to be happening. Now, if I were to kind of extend this prediction out based on what I'm seeing in the charts, what I'll do is let's just expand this out. I don't expect, I mean, it's kind of holding on a little bit longer than I thought, but I think it is going to fizzle out and head down. I think it's just taking a little bit longer than I thought. So it might look something like this, maybe even go up a little bit more and then down, right? So this, I'll mark this as like a blue, sort of line right here. That way, I did it a little later after after the original prediction. And that way we understand that, that's an updated prediction. So back to our normal chart, what does that look like? It looks kind of like this right here. Something like this. And it might pop down sooner. This is going out to Wednesday. Now we do have news coming out tomorrow and the next day, and it's all, news that may or may not have a big effect, but none of it's as big as like CPI or anything like that. So I'm not going to try to project that news might make a huge difference. I think we're just going to see what's on the chart for that. NASDAQ, on the other hand, is kind of grinding upwards. I don't know that it's going to have the energy to do so. Let's look at yesterday's prediction. Yeah, it's just doing what I thought it would do. Just kind of a sideways grind and eventual pop up. So I think I will stick with that thesis for now. Let me take a brief look here at the algos. Yeah, I do think just what I said. I think it's going to grind sideways and eventually pop up. It might kind of take a break, head down a little bit, but the end of the week is right here about. So what we might see is either sideways, through the rest of the week, or you might see some kind of a breakout at some point, right? So we'll see about it. And of course, there might be a liquidity grab, but I think ultimately price is going to want to go up, whether it goes up later this week or early next week after going sideways for several days. We got a few minutes left. I want to take a look at Bitcoin. I know a lot of people want to see that. Now, this projection is something that I mapped out for Algo Factory going back to like mid-November. And it's pretty much, taking the path that I thought it would, more or less. And now charting things like this and doing so going back a week and a half, 2 weeks, that's not an easy, or let's just say that getting it right is uncommon, right? So, and I don't draw these to be precise. I just have like a general idea of where price is going to go. So we're going to see whether or not this continues to be right. As long as the real price crosses my line multiple times, right? As long as the general path is correct, that's what I'm looking at. And of course, if price cannot stay above 83,000 and it breaks down and stays underneath for more than a day or two, probably I'd say even more than half a day, there's a really good chance price will go down to 75,000. Now, if price goes down to 75,000, that I don't want to predict too much about what's going to happen right there. I think eventually we will get a strong bear market rally, even on the high time frame. But right now we're in kind of a delicate time where the whole world's looking at Bitcoin saying, okay, is price going to have another rally? We're going to see new all-time highs. Is it at least going to hang out in the 80,000 range for a period of time? And if we see price hang out in the 80, 90, or low hundreds for like 2 to 4 weeks, then there's a really good chance. And by the way, if that's accompanied with what we call an alt party, meaning all the altcoins, start to really rally, all your, Solana, et cetera, really start to go up really hard and high. And I mean, in a big way, you'll know what I'm talking about. They just, one after the other just goes off. That actually is a sign that the bull market is over. That's your alt party rally. If that extends past 2 weeks, probability that the bull market is over starts to go up. If it extends past 4 weeks, your probability is even higher. And then at the end of 6 weeks, that's when you're like, okay, let's see what Bitcoin does. Now, if Bitcoin starts to head up in a strong way at the end of that 6 weeks, then the probability of the bull market being over starts to decrease, right? Because new all-time highs generally means it's not over yet. So it's a crazy thing. There's always that chance that, having Bitcoin sort of bolted into the mainstream, traditional finance might change the way it behaves at this time. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing the volatility that we used to see over prior years. I think every next few cycles, however long Bitcoin is even a thing, I think those next few cycles will eventually mean the end of it, the end of the volatility. Right? Bitcoin will stabilize. Who knows what price, and go from there. All right, thank you all for watching. We're going to jump into the private live lab. If you look at the screen again, you have the free algo. Link is in that description. That's an algo that I build while you watch me build it on a video. It's not ready for trading. You have to actually take that algorithm, optimize it, make sure for whatever you're trading that it works, right? Because it's going to trade differently for silver or for Bitcoin or for a forex pair or for the stock market. It's all something you have to test, and no algo is ever plug and play, even if you build it yourself. So that algo there is there for you to take a look at and optimize and all that stuff. And on top of that, I show you in that video what traders do to actually connect that algo to their brokerage so they can actually trade when they're not sitting at the computer. And that's what everybody wants to do, and it's really cool. So go ahead and do that. AlgoFactory.tech, learn how to trade like a hedge fund pro, and we will see you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. EST. Love you guys. Don't forget.
Join us or die.
Just kidding, you're not going to die. We love you.